Hello. Thank you so much for watching this. We are going to talk about what vestibular warriors wish their partners knew about their vestibular disorder. I'm super excited you're here, and I just wanted to say thank you for being here. Whether you are a person with a vestibular disorder, whether you are a family, friend, or other loved one, employer, employee of a person with a vestibular disorder, this one is for you. So, again, thank you so much for being here. It really means the world to me and to all vestibular warriors in the world. I am Dr. Madison Oak. I'm a doctor of physical therapy, but I am trained specifically in treating vestibular disorders. I have a certificate of competency in vestibular rehab, which is one of the most thorough, continuing education programs in the world for vestibular rehabilitation. I graduated from the University of Wisconsin-Madison with my doctorate in physical therapy, where we also talked a lot about vestibular disorders in at Wisconsin as well, because our neuro professor just loved them. She really got me interested in the first place. I live in Jackson, Wyoming, which most people know as Jackson Hole. I love to bake, ski, and walk on the beach. I am from California, so I am a beach girl through and through, but I live in the snow these days and absolutely adore to ski just as much as I love to talk about vestibular disorders. If you know me personally, you know that I literally never shut up about the inner ear and its disorders. The main things I treat, and again, I treat all forms of vestibular disorders, but the very main things I treat are vestibular migraine, persistent postural perceptual dizziness, or 3PD, Meniere's disease, and vestibular neuritis. So those are kind of the top four that I treat. But again, I treat and understand all different forms of vestibular disorders. So I wanted to start you off by talking about what your vestibular system is. It's important that everyone in the world in general understands what their vestibular system is, because you never know what it is until something goes wrong. But it's also important for you to know what your vestibular system is, because we are going to be talking about people living with vestibular disorders. So your vestibular system is in your inner ear, and I kind of want to get you oriented. So on the left side of the screen right here, we are talking outer ear. So it's the part you can feel and touch. You can stick your finger in there. It goes all the way until your eardrum. Where this first left black line is, that separates the outer ear from the middle ear where your eardrum is. That's this little maroon part in the center here. Your middle ear is what controls the pressure in your ear. This part on the bottom right looks like Florida, basically. That is your eustachian tube. It's the part that pops when you go up on an airplane or down in a pool, or if you're scuba diving, that is when it pops. That is your middle ear. It also has these three tiny bones, malleus, incus, and stapes, and they produce vibrations from your eardrum to your cochlea. And that is how you hear. Now, your cochlea is on the right side in your inner ear, the part that kind of looks like a curly Q or a snail on the right side. Now, this is a thing you learn about in high school biology class. They say, okay, this is what does hearing, and then you kind of move on, right? What they forget to tell you about is that attached to that cochlea above it is your vestibular system. Now, your vestibular system is responsible for a lot of things in your body and in your brain, most importantly, balance, equilibrium, and acceleration. So you have two parts of your inner ear. Again, we're going to kind of reorient you here. We're going to go cochlea down here on the bottom right, vestibular system up here on the top left. Now, this is just a blown up picture from the last picture. You also have a nerve that is your vestibular branch of your nerve, and it attaches the vestibular system out, and then the cochlear branch, or the auditory branch of your vestibular cochlear nerve. The vestibular cochlear nerve is a cranial nerve. This means it goes directly from your brainstem at the bottom of your brain, top, or kind of, yeah, right at the bottom of your brain, directly to a part of your face or body. There are 12 of them. The vestibular cochlear nerve is number 8, and it does, again, balance, equilibrium, gaze stability, hearing, lots and lots of things. It's responsible for a lot of stuff. This is another picture that I wanted to show you of the exact same thing. So instead of blue, it is two colors this time. You have two kinds of fluid. And on the left here in this canal, there should not be a gap there. It's just a poorly drawn picture. So we have three semicircular canals. The one on the top here is your anterior canal. The one that is bigger that goes around the side, that is your posterior canal. And the one kind of in the center here, that is your horizontal canal. They all have fluid. The pink fluid is endolymph, and the grayish fluid is perilymph. One has sodium, one has potassium, and they kind of have osmosis back and forth, and they keep things nice and steady in there. If you have too much or too little, that can cause dizziness. It's actually what causes vertigo when you get drunk, because that is basically a pressure issue in your ear where it becomes too liquidy. That's the wrong word, but it becomes a little more thin than it should be, and that can cause some vertigo when you see this room spinning if you are too drunk, which is a feeling many people are familiar with. So if you've ever had that happen, that is something you can imagine may be happening all the time for a person who has a vestibular disorder. Now, you also have these tiny thing called your otolith organs. That's where it's labeled or otolith organs. It kind of looks like a coal mine in there. In this picture, it is blown up a little bit. And this otolith organ houses what's called otoconia. These are your linear motion detectors. So the semicircular canals on the left-hand side here, they detect all angular motion. So if you kind of like lay back down on your bed at an angle, spin in a circle at any of those things, that is angular motion. Now we've got linear motion. So that's your forward, backward, side, up, down. That is via your otoconia. So basically these little crystals pull on these cells down here and they tell you where you are in space. That is the short of it. At all times, 24/7, 365, both of your vestibular nerves, if you are looking forward, fire and say, okay, I know I'm looking forward, I'm looking forward, I'm looking forward. When you turn to the left, you can do this with me if you put your hands to the side of your head, kind of beat them at the same time. Okay, this is how I look forward, forward, forward. If you look to the right one fires more and left one fires less, and you say, okay, I'm looking to the right. And the same thing, vice versa. Your left one fires more, your right one fires left when you're looking to the left. And kind of all day long, your brain does that. When you have a vestibular disorder, that system probably isn't working the right way. So any amount of head movement is going to make you dizzy. Now, I'm not saying there are no cures or no answers. Well, there are no cures, but no solutions and management to this. There are, but a person with a vestibular disorder has a lot of really fluctuating days, a lot of different fluctuating symptoms. So different vestibular diagnoses can be, there are many, but vestibular migraine, Meniere's disease, 3PD, vestibular neuritis, BPPV, and so many others. We're not going to go through every single one of these diagnoses. I could go on literally for hours, but I do want you to know the difference between dizziness and vertigo. Vertigo has a very specific definition. It is the incorrect perception that you or the room around you is moving, sliding, or spinning. So you can have internal vertigo where you feel like you are rocking around like this. You can have external vertigo when you literally feel the room or see the room spin. Dizziness is something most people have experienced in their lives, but it is not to the same extent as a person with a vestibular disorder. You may relate to having lightheadedness, kind of fuzzy-headed, brain fog, feeling a little bit off balance one day or another, maybe feeling like you're walking on a trampoline. All of these symptoms are things that you might relate to and be like, well, I've had that before. It's not so bad. It is so bad. I promise you, this is not something someone is making up. There are treatments, there are solutions, there is a way to manage this. And I'll talk about that at the end if you stick with me here. I'm going to try and keep this as short and sweet as I can, but do know that this dizziness is chronic. It is constant and it comes and goes at random and it is debilitating. That is something that I want you to know. This is not something that someone is making up in your life. It is something that they are experiencing. It is not just anxiety. So what does it actually feel like? Everyone's like, I would never wish this on anyone else, but like, how do I get them to know what I feel like? And so these are the words that I hear most frequently. So we can kind of go through these funny pictures that I've gotten. So a jello in my brain is sloshing back and forth like jello. I have a hot air balloon as a head. I feel drunk all the time. I feel like I'm walking on a trampoline. I have really awful brain fog. My brain feels heavy, like I'm lifting weights with my head. I feel like I have brain zaps. I feel like a tree where I'm just swaying back and forth in the wind all the time. I feel like my head is in pain and it's spinning around. I feel like I'm on a roller coaster and I could just get flipped upside down at any time. Now, again, this is not something that someone would wish on anyone, but this is something that I need you to try to empathize with if you have a person in your life with a vestibular disorder. So if you want to see, like, how do I know how to feel? you can try a couple of different things. So if you've ever done a dizzy bat contest, if you've ever stood with your head down on a baseball bat, spun around a bunch of times, and then try to run like the four bases of a baseball field, okay? That is a game that they play with kids at like minor league baseball games or like beer league baseball, right? That is how a person might feel. You can spin yourself in an office chair like 20 times. Please be safe about this. Make sure that this is not an unsafe situation. But if you spin around, you're holding on to the office chair. If you spin yourself around a bunch of times and then stop and like the world is spinning for a second, that's what it feels like. You can also replicate this by spinning in a circle and laying down on the ground and like watching the ceiling or the clouds go by. This is why little kids actually do this on purpose. You may remember doing this as a kid, or maybe you have kids and they do this, that they like spin in a circle and then lay down like, oh my gosh, the clouds are moving so fast. This is what it's like to have a vestibular disorder. Maybe you've had a hangover before. That's another way you can feel like maybe or you have a vestibular disorder. It could feel like you're drunk. So make a memory of when you were last drunk. Think about that. If you have ever been drunk, maybe you haven't, that's great too. But if you have, think about that. You didn't feel super balanced. You didn't feel super in control. Maybe you felt like I can't think straight. Those are all things that can make it feel like what your partner, employer, employee, friend, family, whoever it is in your life who has a vestibular disorder, it feels like. So know that they are not making this up. It is more than just anxiety. It is an invisible illness. You will not be able to see that they don't feel good. And most people are like, I am going to like push really hard and function day to day and do my very best. I still might tell you that I feel like crap today, but you're like, but you're doing everything fine. It does not mean that they don't feel cruddy. This is something that's impossible to see. Different days also have different needs. So some days someone might need you to pick up the laundry or drive them around or take them to a doctor's appointment. And on other days, they might be totally functional, have no issues, and be like, I can do whatever I want. It really is a fluctuating disorder, no matter what kind of vestibular disorder they have. It is completely pretty much out of their control, especially at the beginning. Usually it's completely out of control. After a while of having this and dealing with it and living with it, it can be more in control. But just because you cannot see it does not make it fake, right? It is really frustrating. And I hear that to be in a relationship with someone maybe that you're having trouble with, kind of not figuring out whatever kind of relationship it is, not figuring out how to best communicate or work together. And I know that this can be hard, but they are not making it up, whoever is in your life with a vestibular disorder, and they really may be struggling right now, but being as supportive as you possibly can is going to be the solution here. It's a really emotional thing. It can feel, when I polled everyone, they said scary, exhausting, unpredictable, invisible, helpless, failure, sad, lonely, unbearable, unexplainable or inexplicable, traumatic, bizarre, frustrating, disappointing, or feeling like they are a disappointment. They're different and forgotten or lonely. Anxiety is a really big symptom of vestibular disorder. So if your partner's doctor, or if you are like, it's just anxiety, you need to calm down, I promise you that's never going to work. You cannot just think your way out of it. There are ways that of thinking of your symptoms that are more helpful, like critically thinking of things, but you cannot, and your partner cannot just think their way through this. Like, if I just calm down and stop being dizzy, I'll be fine. That's not the case. But the less support someone receives, the more anxious and the dizzier a person tends to become. So if you and your partner are struggling with this right now and you're just like, I don't know how to support you best, I'm struggling with support, because this is not easy on you either as the other person in this situation. I don't want to let anyone off here scot-free, right? But if you are feeling like, you know what, I'm not being my best supportive self, and maybe do some internal work on that, but I don't know how to be supportive. I'm going to give you some ways to be supportive, but know that this is really, really very emotional for them, and that they are feeling a lot of new and terrifying emotions, like they've lost themselves internally, that they're different than they were before, different than other people, feeling really helpless, like a failure, which if you are watching this and you have a vestibular disorder, you are none of those things. We talk a lot about this in Vestibular Group Fit, but I'm telling you, you are going to be okay. And you and your partner, if you can really work through this, I promise you'll come out the other side stronger. I want to tell you that triggers are also always there. There are many, and they are not making them up. There is maybe somewhere has poor and fluorescent lighting. There are ceiling fans around, being in the car or driving, certain foods, skipping meals, not being hydrated, missing a workout, doing too hard of a workout, needing to do too many things, general stress in the world. Even if every single one of these triggers is avoided, you could still have an attack. So this is a really frustrating piece of living with a vestibular disorder, is just because you have all these triggers and you know them, and you're like, if I could just like avoid all these things, then I'm going to be great. You might still have an attack that does not make you a failure, does not make you a bad person if you're the person living with this, but you do have to know like, hey, you know what? I need to avoid these things and do these other things in order for myself to feel my best and to get my work done and do whatever I need to do throughout the day. Even if all triggers are avoided, you may still have an attack, and that's okay. It doesn't make you a failure, it doesn't make you a bad person, but knowing how to handle an attack and knowing how your partner can help you through your attack can be fantastic. So, speaking of that, how can you as the partner help? And these are just a few things that we're going to talk about. I have a few slides here, but know that the first and foremost, communication is key, right? You have to be having these conversations with your partner, significant other, loved one, friend, family member, employer, employee, literally whatever you are and however you are in a relationship with this other person, communication about it is key. So learn about their disorder on your own time. Use Google. We say this about a lot of different things. But seriously, learning about someone else's disorder and diagnosis on your own is one of the most loving and kind things that you can do for a person. Whether their diagnosis is something vestibular, if their diagnosis is autism, if their diagnosis is cancer, if their diagnosis is literally whatever. If you take the time and learn about that diagnosis and about what they're going through, and just by sitting here listening to this today, you are doing yourself and your partner a service. Talk to your person about what their symptoms are like and what they may need, and then have a plan for attacks. So know that, again, even if you avoid every single trigger, you may have higher and lower symptom days, or you may have attacks still. And if you too have a plan of attack for your attacks, then that is one step in the right direction where you can be like, okay, we are prepared for this if something does happen. Just believe them. They're not making this up. If they're having a higher symptom day, you don't need to go questioning them about like, why is this, or how is this, or didn't want to do this activity, so you're making this up. No, just be like, okay, I'm really sorry. How can I help? I know you're having a hard day. If you can go at it from that point of view, rather than being like, are you sure? Or like playing devil's advocate, you're going to get a way better response from the person having the attack. And your whole life in general is going to be easier. And I know this is a really big adjustment if whoever is in your life hasn't always had this thing going on. Um, a lot of times the words don't exist, but know that they're trying. So I gave you a lot of words on that slide of like walking on a trampoline, hot air balloon head, jelly brain, right? All of those things are words to describe it, but like sometimes they're just like, this is such a horrible, bizarre feeling, and I don't have words to describe it, but know that they're trying. Know that when they cancel, they had wanted to make the plan. It's one of the things I hear most from patients is like, I really want to do this thing, and I literally just, I cannot do it. I can't do it. It's not that I don't want to do it. It's like I physically cannot do it. And I don't know if there's ever been something where in the world, I just can't make it happen. I just can't do it, but you really wanted to. Maybe you and your family wanted to go to Disneyland, but your person is like, I I can't get in the car. I feel like I'm gonna have a meltdown. Like, I can't do it. It's not their fault and it's not their intention. And if you can know and understand that and give them the benefit of the doubt always, you are going to be in a better place. Next is asking what they need. So all these disorders are on a spectrum. So sometimes they may need a lot of help, and some people may not need a lot of help at all. Some people are like, okay, I just need you to be I have a patient who just needs someone to be in the car when she drives, but then she can do her errands. And I know other people who are like, most days of the week can't even get in a car or be near a car, right? And then I have some patients who are like, some days I can drive myself everywhere, and other days I can't leave the house. And so, again, this is a very big spectrum. Every single person is different. So, talking to whoever is in your life with the vestibular disorder and saying, what is it that you need? Can we have a code word? Is the word, I don't know, picture frame, a word for I need extra help today, or, I'm going to be okay. Remember, if they are using extra tools, like earplugs, for example, they are not avoiding you or being rude. It's just necessary. These things can make you really, really sound sensitive. Remember, we talked about that cochlear nerve, that auditory nerve, your hearing nerve being attached to your vestibular nerve. That can make you really hearing sensitive. And then compromise on things you're able to do versus not able to do. Maybe someone is able to fold the laundry, but not like load it in the laundry because they can't like look down like this, but they can fold after. Maybe one of you does half of it, one of you does the other half. Maybe someone can do the laundry but not the dishes, right? So be really willing to compromise on what they can do and kind of be like, hey, you can do all these things. I'm going to pick up the slack here. Everything in relationships, again, whether you are an employer or an employee or in a relationship with someone with a vestibular disorder, there's always things someone is going to be able to do and some slack that they're going to need to pick up. And that's okay. And remember, again, everything is going to fluctuate. The next best thing you can do is just believe them. Again, I know we talked about this in communication, but no one is making this up. I have seen a total of 0 patients in my life, and I only see people with vestibular disorders who have made this up, and it's actually been anxiety. It's happened some total of 0 times. So if they have a vestibular disorder, it's invisible. There are not really a lot of good tests for this, especially the most common of them all, which is, second most common of them all, which is vestibular migraine. Now, you can see BPPV because you can see someone's eyes twitch. That's a whole different story. It's not for now, it's for later. But if someone has something like vestibular migraine or persistent postural perceptual dizziness or Meniere's disease or vestibular neuritis, there aren't a ton of good tests. There are some tests for neuritis. There are some tests for Meniere's disease, but in general, the testing isn't great. And even if you get all of your testing back and you're totally normal, having vestibular migraine and triple PD in those scenarios is so common. So know that even though there's no test for it, even though you cannot see it and they look 100% normal, something is going on internally and they are having a really hard time with it. Resting is not lazy, it's a necessity for function. Vestibular disorders will make you more fatigued than like the average human being because your body is working so hard to keep you upright to make up for the fact that your balance and equilibrium is off, that everything else is just like there's no energy for anything else. So again, there's rehab options for that. There's vestibular group fit for that. There's lots of options for this, but especially when you're having a higher symptom day, and especially when you're just starting off with this, it's not lazy, it's a necessity to function. People with chronic illness and vestibular disorders need more rest than other people. Next thing is just being nearby. So if you are physically with someone, you can grab their rescue kit. You can provide a hand or arm to hold for grounding. This provides like extra somatosensory or proprioceptive input. So if you if you're trying to balance on one foot and you put a hand down, you may notice that's much easier than just balancing on one foot in the middle of the room. This is because you have extra input from the other parts of your body. So if you can like hold someone's hand or hold their arm and help them with their grounding, which is basically reminding yourself that you're safe and still and all these other things. Grab their rescue kit. A lot of people have rescue medications they can take. Those are really, really helpful things. You can also just be on the phone with someone. If you're not nearby, you can check in with a quick call. You can send a text, send an email, whatever floats your boat. You can offer to come over for a short visit if they're feeling up for it, especially if they are alone. I know some people are like single parents with their kids half the time and it's like, hey, now I'm really alone and I don't know what to do. Offer to come over. Even if they don't respond, they know you're there and they appreciate it. So again, communicate, ask what they need, believe them, and be nearby. Now, I took a really big poll about what people wish their partners knew, and I got so many responses. It took me weeks to go through them. So what I want people to know. Now, I need extra rest, especially after a filled day. So maybe you went to a museum with your kids, right? This person's going to need more rest after that day than maybe they did if you guys stayed home and had a relaxing Sunday. I'm doing my absolute best to get better, and please know that I'm trying. When it's dark, I can't walk around and my balance system doesn't work like yours does. This is true factually. You have three systems of balance: vision, vestibular, and somatosensory or proprioceptive. If you close your eyes, it's a lot harder to balance than with your eyes open. And so, with a person with a vestibular disorder, you might be able to do it really well, but if you have a vestibular disorder, that's going to be harder. Um, People with vestibular disorders are really light and sound sensitive. So things like fluorescent lighting and loud sounds are going to be really triggering and really frustrating. This is really emotional, and how truly unsettling it is. And it makes you feel really powerless, that it can be so unpredictable. One day you could be feeling great. The next day you do not feel so great. It really is frustrating and unpredictable. I feel a huge sense of failure as a woman. First of all, if you wrote this or you feel this way, know that you are not a failure, but it can really make you feel that way. If I don't get enough sleep, my symptoms will be worse the next day because this interferes with other aspects of my life. Please know that when this happens, it's really upsetting and disappointing to me too, but I need to take care of my health. We need support even if we don't ask. And please don't forget about me. I know how easy it is to forget that I have this, but please either try to remember or ask me what I need. I don't want to talk about it all the time, and you don't need to know exactly how I'm feeling all the time. This is a big one because we actually want to focus less on like how I feel all the time, doing these body scans. How do I feel? How do I feel? And more like, I feel like I can do this today. So help them focus more on what they can do in a non-frustrating way. So maybe you don't bring it up, but if they bring it up, like, hey, I feel like I can do the dishes today, you're like, great, let them do it. How guilty it makes me feel having to rely on you, helping with the baby, driving, groceries, and more. Also, it's really scary to feel out of control out of your own body so suddenly. I'm not being selfish, lazy, or flaky. I don't enjoy canceling plans or saying no to things. Know that although I look and perform well, my brain is constantly wishing for a moment of relief. And while you are talking to me, I'm constantly dissociating from you, and it's not you, it's me. Although I push through and do and complete my daily tasks, I'm in constant discovery, and it makes time. It takes a lot for me to do what I just did. I know it sounds silly when I celebrate being able to make it through a grocery shop, but for me, that's really big. And for others, it's just a whatever thing. Doing the mundane things, cooking, cleaning, grocery store, driving, things that you do not think twice about, are some of the most difficult and most frustrating things. So know that when this is happening for them, it's like celebrate with them, be excited, celebrate the small things because it really is a big deal. The unpredictability of this condition and the anxiety that goes along with all the symptoms is difficult, and it's emotionally and physically exhausting. It can't, and it can be. I want to do things with them, but sometimes I just can't. I don't have the energy. Sometimes I feel like an infant because I cannot complete simple tasks. Imagine all of the things you do on a day-to-day basis. Like, make a list. I get up in the morning, I brush my teeth, I go to the bathroom, I make myself breakfast, I go to work, I drive to work, I go to work, I sit at work, I get up, I go to lunch, I sit back down, I leave at 5 or 4, whatever time you leave work, I drive home, I cook dinner, I say hi to my kids and my family, and I go to sleep. Now imagine every single one of those things if you can't walk straight, or if you feel dizzy, or if you felt hungover, but trying to do all those things. Think of the day you've been most hungover on your life, if you drink, if you've ever been hungover. Now imagine doing every single day like that, all day, every day, and needing to do all of your normal tasks, right? Your head hurts, you feel dizzy, you feel tired, you feel like really nauseous, like you might throw up, right? You're really sensitive to light, you're really sensitive to sound. It's literally having a hangover all the time. And it's super frustrating, and they're working on getting as better as quickly as possible. And the more support they get, the better they'll feel more quickly. Now, I want to talk about one really, really common diagnosis. It's called vestibular migraine. You may have heard of it if a person in your life has VM. If they haven't been diagnosed yet and all their tests come back normal, the most likely cause of this statistically is vestibular migraine because it's the most common neurological cause of dizziness. It's more than just a headache. You don't even need a headache or head pain to get a vestibular migraine diagnosis. Vestibular migraine is a neurological disorder causing symptoms of head pain, sometimes dizziness, vertigo, imbalance, fatigue, light sensitivity, sound sensitivity, and more. I talk a lot about vestibular migraine on my Instagram for free and in Vestibular Group Fit. So if you have questions about VM, those are two really great resources to get started with. Lastly, we're going to talk about treatment. And well, second to last, most doctors don't know how to treat it because vestibular disorders simply are not taught in medical school. They're usually not even taught in PT school. So if you are at like your eighth doctor, you're like, why does no one know about this? It's literally, I have two people at my house over this weekend. One is going to be an OBGYN and one is going to be an orthopedic surgeon. Two of maybe some of the most complex kinds of doctors and like intense kinds of doctors in the world. They are all pretty intense, but those two are pretty crazy. And there's literally these people like, I've literally never heard of the vestibular system and vestibular disorders once in 4 years of medical school. So know that it's not your fault and it's not really your doctor's fault. It's like a fault of the medical system. I could go on and on about that forever, but that is why you may not have a diagnosis yet. But there's lots of different treatment options. There are no cures for vestibular disorders, but there are many, many ways to manage medications, diet, movement and exercise, hydration, rest, support, mindset, education, and so much more. Now, we're at the point where I'm going to tell you how I personally like to manage vestibular disorders. I own a one-on-one clinic that I see patients in, and I also own a group coaching program. Now, again, I'm Dr. Madison Oak. You've heard me talk for the last 30-ish minutes, and I want to tell you the story of how I got here. I do not have a vestibular disorder, but this is one of my very first days at work. I'm a vestibular physical therapist. This is me on the Upper East Side of New York City. Now, for some reason, I have literally no idea why this picture is not here on the right, but this center picture right here is me taking a trip to the Hamptons because the richest of the rich people could get the best and most personalized treatments by literally taking their personal driver, asking them to pick me up from Manhattan, drive me 2 hours to the Hamptons at the very end of Long Island, which is a very fancy, fancy place in Long Island, and then driving me back to the city. They would pay my boss thousands of dollars for one visit. I would not make even a fraction of that, but my boss really benefit from it. Then I was like, you know what? I should not be only doing this. This should say riches of the rich, not riches of the right, but whatever. Riches of the rich people could get the best and most personalized treatments. This is one of the pictures I took when I was out there because I was like, holy crap, we are not in New York City anymore. Then over here, this is a picture of me, I think. I don't know why it's not there, but I am the founder of one of the most comprehensive program. And because of this, because of all the people who were driving me out to the Hamptons, they were paying thousands of dollars for really personalized treatment. I was like, you know what? This should be accessible. This should be comprehensive, and this should be easy to access quality and excellent care no matter where you live in the world, and it should be affordable. So Vestibular Group Fit is what I came up with. It is comprehensive dizziness management through gentle movement, support, education, and mindset. And let me tell you, it works. So here are some of the results, some of the thousands of results of people who I've gotten, and it is phenomenal. So sensitivity and overstimulation are huge issues, but using grounding strategies and then my loops, my earplugs, I was able to acclimate and enjoy hours together in a holiday family meal. Going to the grocery store 4 times in 1 week with no anxiety. Each trip was longer than the last, and my vision seemed to sort itself out with each trip. That's a huge win. Overall, feeling a decrease in symptoms this week, probably because of all of these exercises. Super excited for this person. If you go through and read these, they are about being able to ride your bike again, move and pack boxes, bend over all the time in order to do the dishes, be able to drive again after 7 weeks, being able to drive an hour and a half to your parents' house, whatever it is, staying in a hotel, going to a work meeting 12 hours away. All of these things are really huge deals, and they are possible because of comprehensive dizziness management and vestibular group fit. So gentle movement, support, education, and mindset, those are the 4 most important pillars of healing from a vestibular disorder. We are focused on the word can in here. What can I do? What things am I able to do? We get new educational material every 3 weeks. We are going to rethink and reset your mindset about how you think about your symptoms to get out of the dizzy, anxious, dizzy cycle. And we are going to help you with gentle movement because your vestibular system is a gyroscope in your head. And the more you move in a safe and secure way that your body feels like, oh, you know what, I can do this, the better you are going to feel long term. So there is a discount for watching this class. The discount code is partner, and you get a week free on a 3-month subscription for Vestibular Group Fit. I will link it below. It's also in the link that you got this masterclass in. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can feel free to contact me. My email is madison@thevertigodoctor.com. You can also DM me on Instagram. And I hope to see you in Vestibular Group Fit so we can make this all better together. Thank you so much for listening today. I will see you soon. Bye, guys.